The movie begins with Mr. Patrick Hazelwood, an elderly man, being taken to Mrs. Marion Burgess's house by the medical staff. She is going to take care of him after he had suffered a stroke. She takes his personal belongings and takes note of all the important things the nurses tell her. We get a shot of her living room where we see an old wedding picture. That wedding couple happens to be Mr. and Ms. Burgess, and their love story will touch you. In comes Mr. Burgess, or Tom for short. He notices that Patrick is not in his room, and that upsets him. He complains to Marion and she says that he can go wherever he wants, because he is not a prisoner. Tom suggests putting him in a home because he thinks he is a burden, and his wife had brought him there to punish him. Marion laughs at Tom's nonsense and says nothing of it. Later on in the night, while everyone's asleep, Marion opens Patrick's box of belongings and finds his diaries from when they were young. She gets emotional as she doesn't want to go back to that period, and closes the diary immediately. Marion tries to lighten Patrick's mood in the morning by reading him some art news, as he was a museum curator. He doesn't seem fazed by it as he tries to ask for a cigarette, which is something he isn't allowed to do if he wants to live. Marion can't seem to understand him at first, but when she does, she tells him that he cannot smoke. He gets angry and yells for her to leave. She leaves his room and lights one herself. She looks through the window and sees her husband. He and the waves remind her of the first time she set her eyes on him. We are taken back in time as we see a young Marion sitting with Tom's sister at the beach. Marion admires Tom and asks her friend why she hasn't asked Tom about swimming lessons, as Marion doesn't know how to swim. She tells her not to get her hopes up for Tom, because he likes women that are loud, not shy, and timid like Marion. The boys come to them and ask them whether they would like to join them for a swim. Marion's friend makes fun of her because she cannot swim, and even mentions to Tom that she wants swimming lessons from him. Tom's sister runs off with the other guy to the waters, so Tom and Marion are left alone. Tom tells her that he didn't recognize her at first, because it has been so long since he last saw her. She tells him that she has been in teacher training school, and he tells her that he is stationed up north as a police officer. Tom tells the young woman that she cannot go through life being afraid of the water, and Marion says that the water is too cold. Marion finds herself at the pool the next day, ready for her swimming lessons. She gets in the water and Tom tells her to throw her legs behind her, and after trying the whole day, Marion is finally able to swim. They sit by the pool after the lessons, and Tom asks Marion whether she's a bookworm, and she smiles while nodding her head. He asks her to show him some books, as he isn't much of a reader, and in exchange, he will have more swimming lessons with her. They go to the library, and Tom asks Marion for books about art, more specifically about a painter named J.M. Turner. They sit down to read after finding their preferred books, but Marion can't seem to keep her eyes off the policeman as she admires him, rather than the book. The more time passes, the more Marion learns to swim, and the more she falls for the policeman. Apart from having swimming lessons and going to the library, the pair find themselves enjoying dates with each other. Back to the present. We see an old Tom enjoying the scenery right outside his house and Patrick trying to steal cigarettes. Marion catches him and takes the cigarette out of his mouth, after some struggling, of course. Patrick asks for Tom, and Marion tells him that he doesn't want to see him, and he won't even come to his room. She says that Tom won't ever forgive her for bringing him to their house. She leaves Patrick alone in the room, and he starts crying. We get to see how Marion and Patrick first met as the movie takes us back. Tom takes Marion to the museum for a private tour of the Western art galleries. She wonders how he had been able to get a private tour, and he tells her that Patrick had been a witness to one of the accidents on his watch. After talking, he had invited him for a private tour. He knew that Marion would enjoy the tour more, and that is the reason why he had brought her there. We see Patrick passionately explaining the art in the museum, and Marion being touched by it. At the end of the tour, Patrick invites the couple to a recital on Friday. Patrick says he's never been to one, but it is up to Marion whether they'll go. She says that she would love to, and they settle at 7 p.m. on Friday. While taking their walk, Marion tells Tom that it was kind of Patrick to invite them, but she's a little bit upset because they'll miss their library visit. Tom tells her they can cancel if she doesn't want to go, but she tells him no, as she doesn't want to hurt his feelings. She says that he can't have many friends his age as he's invited them to such event, but Tom jokes that the man might have found interest in her. Friday comes and the trio goes to the recital. After some beautiful music, the group goes to a cafe. Patrick drinks some red wine and says how it reminded him of Rome. Marion asks him whether he travels a lot, and he says yes because of his work. He asks her the same, and she says that she wishes. Patrick stops her and tells her that she has to dream for it to come true, and Marion says that she would love to go to Venice. From that night forward, the trio can be seen doing everything together. From picnics to trips and even karaoke nights, the trio seems to get along really well. Marion sits down with her friend and tells her experience with going to the opera. She tells her that it was beautiful, but her friend asks her whether they had been Patrick's guests again. She says yes, but the main reason they had gone is that it had been a dream of hers, and her friend gives her a weird look. She tells her that Patrick and she make a more suitable couple than she and Tom. because they have similar interests. Marion admits that Patrick is dashing, but she describes Tom as perfect with all of his features. Her friend tells her that she seems like she's in love and Marion smiles. She tells her that Tom had planned a date just for them, and she's more than excited. The date seems to go awkward as Tom finds it difficult to communicate with Marion. He asks her to go out of the cafe because they can't talk in there. They get out, and Marion asks him why they cannot have a drink like a normal couple. He kisses her and tells her that he wants to take her somewhere. They arrive at a rather fancy apartment, and Marion seems to be fascinated by the beauty of it. She asks whether the apartment is Patrick's, and Tom tells her that he has given him the keys to it as he hands her a drink. Marion spots a portrait of Tom on the wall, and Tom tells her that's the way he and Patrick met. Marion tells him that he had told her a different story, but Tom changes the topic by saying that they have to finish the tour. After finishing the tour, Tom finds it hard to ask Marion a certain question. She tells him to spit it out, and he asks her to be his wife. Marion says that she hadn't been sure whether he even liked her, and he says that he has never tried anything because he was afraid of growing up. When a man gets married, it is a big step, plus he had thought that she was more interested in Patrick than him. It cuts to the present. Marion and Tom are playing cards when Marion tries to talk to him about Patrick. She tells him that he had asked for him, and Tom says that he doesn't want to hear it. Marion begs him to have a talk with Patrick, as that is what they owe him after what had happened. Tom says that everything had been fine before Patrick showed up. Tom goes to grab his coat as he tries to leave Marion and escape the conversation. Patrick's door had been open all this time, and he ended up hearing everything Tom said about him. Tom leaves and Marion gives Patrick his medication. While in his room, Marion grabs one of the diaries from Patrick's box and proceeds to read it. She opens the page on the 29th of July 1957. It is the date Tom and Patrick first met. Patrick had gone to Tom for help because an old lady had fallen from a bicycle. Tom and Patrick rushed to the scene, but the lady had run off while saying that she hates the coppers. Tom laughs and Patrick apologizes for bothering him. He describes Tom as different from the other coppers, someone whose eyes lit up once he spoke. Patrick hands him his business card and Tom reveals that he has never been to a museum, not even on a school trip. That is when Patrick invites him to the museum as his guest. Patrick keeps mentioning Tom's innocence, saying that it is combined with curiosity. He expresses that he would love to draw him, but he doesn't want him to misunderstand him. He writes about the time Tom had come to his museum for the first time, complimenting his beauty, and recognizing him even from behind. Tom stares at the painting in front of him and describes it with passion. Patrick gets impressed with his way of describing and tells him that he is an amateur painter himself. He asks Tom to come down to his apartment so he can draw him, and Tom says that he has never been asked to model. Patrick tells him not to have doubts, because a man should always try to improve himself. A couple of days pass, and we see Tom getting into a building. As he climbs the stairs, he greets Tom and introduces him as his cousin. They get inside, and we find out that Tom has come to have his portrait taken as he gets into his uniform. Patrick starts working on his craft and tries to have small talk with him. He asks him whether he likes being a policeman, and Tom says that he likes knowing that he's doing something good for the people, protecting the public. Patrick says that he has a lot of ambition and is a very open-minded policeman. He admits that he tries to distance himself from the policemen as much as possible. Tom argues, saying that there's no need to fear a police officer if you're staying on the right side of the law. Tom starts to doubt his decision about coming over, but Patrick cuts him off by offering him a drink. They end up getting tipsy and having a rather good time. After fooling around with the police costume, Patrick sits down next to Tom. Tom keeps asking about his portrait, and Patrick tells him all he wants to hear. Tom puts his hand on Patrick's neck and starts caressing it. Once he realizes what he's doing, he apologizes and removes his hand from him. Tom admits that he doesn't know what's happening, but Patrick proceeds to open up his shirt and start touching him. Tom falls into the pleasure and seems to enjoy it. They end up being intimate, but Tom is filled with regret after it. He doesn't believe that Patrick can live like that, and says that he cannot live such a life as he exits Patrick's apartment. Patrick writes in his diary that he isn't sure whether he'll see his policeman again, as he blames the wretched time they live in. He thanks the bar Argyll for existing, as he can drown his sorrow by giving and receiving pleasure from an unknown man. He ends up getting with a man from the bar one night. Their fun is stopped as policemen spot them outside goofing around and yell for them to stop. Patrick ends up escaping the coppers and comes home to Tom, waiting on his doorstep. He lets him in and Tom asks whether he still wants to draw him. Patrick says if he wishes, but that doesn't satisfy Tom as he starts yelling that he had wanted it in the first place, of course not actually referring to the drawing. Patrick tells him that he's drunk and Tom loses it. He starts yelling, saying that Patrick knew what he was doing, and that he had gotten him there under false pretenses. Tom tells him that he shouldn't have dragged him into the situation, but Patrick defends himself by saying that he had touched him first. He says that he shouldn't have done that, but Patrick makes him admit that it felt right. Tom tries to resist, but Patrick kisses him, and they let their passion take over. They hold each other after, and Tom asks Patrick whether he had ever thought about getting married. Patrick admits that he had had a lover by the name of Michael, and they were together for 5 years, but a gang had beaten him to death because of his sexuality. Tom proceeds to ask him whether he feels lonely, and Patrick says that he isn't alone and that he has Tom by his side. Tom says that they have to be careful, and Patrick agrees. Patrick mentions the time he met Marion, and how he and Tom had their little secret while hanging out with her. He also mentions the day Tom told him that he was in love with Marion. We see them walking on the beach, and Tom tells Patrick that there's something that needs to be said. He tells him that he plans on getting married, as men are ought to be married. Tom says that marrying will bring him more success in the work field as well. Patrick says that it isn't fair for the girl, but Tom says that he loves her and plans on having children with her as well. This doesn't sit well with Patrick as he pushes Tom against a rock and proceeds to... Tom begs him to stop but soon gives in. Patrick asks whether he's saying goodbye to him, and Tom says no and even asks whether he can share him. The scene cuts to Tom and Marion's wedding. We see Patrick climb on the stage, as he is ready to give a toast. He doesn't say much but wishes well for the nice and civilized couple. He even asks Tom to kiss the bride, and he does so. Tom and Marion go to their new house after the wedding, and when nighttime comes, proceed to spend their first night together as a couple. Tom ends up not being really good at it, and he starts apologizing to Marion, but she comforts him by saying that it was lovely. They get a surprise the next morning, as Patrick pulls up in their driveway. He had promised Tom to cook a wedding feast for them, but it seems as if Tom has forgotten to tell Marion. All of them prepare dinner together, with lots of singing and alcohol. The dinner goes well, but it gets tense once the topic of Marion's work gets brought up. Patrick suggests that Marion should be able to work, but Tom disagrees as he thinks the mother of the home should be with her children. Patrick argues more and that makes Tom crazy. He starts yelling, saying that Patrick doesn't know anything about children or having a family, so he shouldn't listen to him. He says that in such anger, he ends up breaking a plate with his fist. The next morning comes, and Marion can't seem to find anyone in the house. She goes outside, and only when she looks into the shed, she finds her husband being intimate with Patrick. Shock runs through her body as she tries to go back to the house unnoticed. She tries to calm down, and does once she sees Patrick leaving. Tom comes into the house and suggests making breakfast for his wife. Marion doesn't say anything, so Tom comes closer to her. He asks her why she's upset, but she says that she wants to go in the bedroom with him. We see an older Marion. She is opening another one of Patrick's diaries, and in that one, he talks about how he feels after Tom and Marion get married. The date is the 25th of May 1958. He feels that Tom is slipping away from him. We see them. Patrick is begging Tom to stay longer, but he says he has to go because Marion is expecting him. Patrick hands him a book about Venice. He tells him that he's going to Venice the following month, and would love nothing more but for him to join him. They won't have to hide and they can be free. He plans on taking Tom as an assistant, as there is an open job for someone at the museum. Tom says that he cannot do such a thing, but Patrick takes it upon himself to tell her. Marion takes the children to the museum for a tour, and Patrick takes the opportunity to tell Marion about the trip to Venice. He makes it sound as almost it is Tom's fault for not telling her. Marion notices what's going on, and pretends to know about the trip. She rushes home after finishing work, and goes through Tom's stuff. She ends up finding Tom's book about Venice and she tears it apart. Tom comes home after work and sees Marion in their room. She asks him whether he's going to Venice with Patrick, and he says that he hasn't decided yet. Marion proceeds to call Patrick profanities, and Tom defends him. She tells him that it is obvious to everyone but him, and Tom tells her that if she wants to see a pervert, she should come to the station with him. Marion tells him that Patrick is trying to ruin their marriage, but Tom turns the situation and says that she has a dirty mind. She feels hopeless and says that she doesn't know what to do. Tom says that they'll say no more about it. They will forget about the situation. The trip to Venice goes better than what Tom had hoped for. They explore the city, do things that couples would do, and just have the time of their life. Marion seems to have an awful time, while her husband is on vacation with his lover. She sees the postcards they have sent her, and ends up burning them. A couple of days pass, and Marion's colleague asks her about her weird behavior. She says that Tom is away in Venice. He is with Patrick and that is what worries her. But Marion thinks that Tom has only tendencies that Patrick encourages. She asks her coworker for help, but she says that he won't change and the best thing to do is accept that. Marion says that he has to give that up, and that he will change with her help. She says that it is wrong to feel such things. Her coworker tells her that she is wrong as well. She has someone in her life as much as she loves Tom. Marion argues that it's unnatural to do and feel such things. Some time passes and we see Patrick being visited by a policeman in the museum. They bring him to the station and Tom looks him straight in the eye as he walks past him. Tom hurries home and starts looking for Marion. He sits down and explains the situation to her. She tells him that they can start over their marriage again, and he argues with her that it isn't about their marriage, but he could get ruined if someone was to find out. Marion asks him whether it is true, and he admits that he had been with Patrick. Marion tries to comfort Tom and says that they will find a good lawyer for him, and she is willing to stand as a character witness. We see Marion in court defending Patrick. She is asked about the visit her children had at the museum, and whether Patrick had seemed a danger to the ones. She says that it was quite the opposite, as children loved being around him. She is asked whether she thinks Patrick would have done such inappropriate acts, and she tells them no. They ask her about her husband's closeness to Patrick, and even about the trip to Italy. She tells them that Patrick is a really close friend of hers, and even her husband's. She says that the trip to Italy had been purely about business. Patrick had business there and Tom was his assistant. The lawyer in the court proceeds to read an extract from one of Patrick's diaries. In that extract, my policeman is mentioned, and that leads them to believe that the policeman is Tom. Marion says that she does not know who that policeman is, but the lawyer proceeds to read another extract to make it a bit clearer. In the other extract, a schoolteacher is mentioned, which, again, leads them to believe that's Marion. It cuts to the present. We see an older Tom and Marion at a shop. Tom spots two young men in love and tells Marion that he will be waiting in the car. He rushes to the car and starts crying. Marion gets in and notices her husband is upset. He doesn't tell her why, but it all comes clear to her as she sees the couple as well. Patrick's prison experience had not gone well, we learn, as a scene from the past plays. Patrick says that he sees a psychiatrist that will help him heal. However, he stops the conversation and asks about Tom. Marion tells him that he cannot come, but she will ask him either way. Patrick assumes that Marion's happy as she's won. Marion leaves but makes sure to tell him that no one's won. She comes home only to see Tom burning his uniform. She tells him that she's seen Patrick, and that it isn't fair that everyone's deserted him. She proceeds to ask him whether he's in love with him, and Tom says that he is only in love with her. He asks her not to mention his name again as he cannot lose her. After Marion's visit, Patrick ends up getting beaten by another inmate. It cuts to the present. We see Marion packing. She goes to Tom and tells him that she cannot take care of Patrick anymore, and she cannot stand him yelling all the time. Tom tells her to stop the nonsense, but she tells him that she's leaving. She says that she knows that Tom loved and still loves Patrick. Tom tries to walk away from the situation, but Marion's words make him freeze in his tracks. She admits that she was the one that reported Patrick to the museum. She had written a letter to his supervisor saying that she knew Patrick had been a homosexual. She admits that she regretted it the very next day, but there was no turning back at that point. Tom admits that he had been wrong as well. He wanted to tell her, but he didn't want to lose her. Tom begs her to stay, but she tells him she has to go and he is the one that has to stay. Take care of and love Patrick because he is failing. Marion gets into a taxi and leaves. Tom is left alone with Patrick, and he decides to go to his room for the first time. He gets closer to him, and just like when they were young, their love never seemed to have faded.